welcome you to this press briefing. Without any waste of time, I will call upon Minister Dlamini Zuma, the Minister of Cooperative, to brief us on the COVID-19 national state of disaster. Minister, we are ready for your briefing.
Thank you very much, Mr. Baloyi. And good evening or good afternoon to all the members of the media. And thank you for coming. I would like to brief you on where we are with the national state of disaster. As you would remember, a week ago, the president addressed the nation, indicating that the country, as a country, we're ready to enter a new phase in the management of the pandemic. He cautioned that though the pandemic is not yet over, it was the desire of government for the country, as much as it's possible, to return to normality, but in a manner that recognizes the changing nature of the pandemic. However, following the president's announcement on Wednesday, the 22nd, and given that the pandemic is monitored on a daily basis, it was decided that the country must go towards the end of the national state of disaster. But that, of course, we can't do that in a reckless and abrupt manner. So what we are going to do is to publish some regulations that should remain, because Section 27 of the Disaster Management Act does provide for the management of post-disaster management and rehabilitation. So what is proposed is that when the national state of disaster ends, there should be some regulations that will remain for not more than 30 days that will assist in the transition. And those regulations are going to be gazetted, and we are going to ask the public to comment for at least 48 hours. And then we'll see what the comments say. And then those will be analyzed, and then the final decision will be taken to end the national state of disaster. And the president will then announce when that time comes. Those regulations will include things like the 350, maybe I should just read them for you as they would be, in the way they would be gazetted for comment. It would be Regulation 67, which provides for the wearing of masks indoors, in indoor gatherings, but not outdoors. And then the wearing of the face mask is mandatory for every person when in an indoor public place, excluding children under 6, of course. And people won't be allowed to enter those public places, indoor places and buildings without a mask. And then the social distancing in those gatherings, which is just 1 meter, except in the schools. because in the schools and they are no longer necessary. And then also that all gatherings, including faith-based, religious, political, cultural, restaurants, you name it, those gatherings, 1,000 people indoors will be allowed and 2,000 outdoors. But if you want to go beyond 1,000, then you can go up to 50% of the venue. But that one has a condition that you must show that you have been vaccinated or show a certificate of the PCR test that is no older than 72 hours. But if it's 1,000, then those conditions do not apply. And also gatherings at the workplace and so on, indoors, all those are governed by that condition. And then 35 is also amended. 75 is the one that deals with the borders, both the land borders, which are all now fully operational, and the ones that were closed. The 32 that are closed will remain closed because they were closed because they were not necessarily economical. But the ones that are open, 21 of them are fully operational. And when you enter there from outside, you must show either a PCR test that's not older than 72 hours or a vaccine certificate. If you have a vaccine certificate, you don't need the PCR test. And the same goes for the international airports as well, OR, King Shaka, and so on. Cape Town, Lanseria, Kruger Park. We are also allowed to come in with a vaccine certificate or with a PCR test, but not necessarily both. And of course, we also know that there are certain things that were introduced through the through the Disaster Management Act, which need to continue for some time, not more than 30 days, like the payment of 350 will continue, but will be removed from the national disaster after 30 days has lapsed, and will continue through other means. The same with the backlog of the driver's license. That one will continue to be addressed for that short period as well through the Disaster Act, even when the disaster, national state of disaster would have ended. So we will publish, and the no-fault compensation scheme will continue because it's a post-disaster issue that needs to be addressed. So we'll publish these regulations for comment for 48 hours starting today, and then we'll analyze what they say, and then the president will announce the end of the national state of disaster, which will be before the 15th. Depending on the comments, it might be around the 5th of April. So that's really what we wanted to inform you about. And also, we also, this was also informed by the Disaster Management Center, which has also done its own work. And they've advised that the classification of the pandemic at this point is no longer advisable. And so Cabinet met last night and took the decision that we must move towards ending the national state of disaster, but put these regulations that will only be there for not more than 30 days as post-disaster rehabilitation as it's allowed.
Recording in progress.
As it's allowed in the law, so that things don't just stop abruptly, because it would be a pity to stop the 350 abruptly or the licenses and so on. So that's where we are. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Minister, and thank you for also on the core issues that the regulations will be gazetted, published, and the comment time for 48 hours. And then based on the response, then we would take further steps. Minister, may I also request that Minister can take it in one of the African languages to make sure that we reach the broader population. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Baloyi. Ngiyabonga, Mnumzane Baloyi. Bengithi ngiyanibingelela nonke balaleli neintatheli ikhona. Ngithi angisho ukuthi njengoba kade si kule ndawo esikuyona ye state of disaster, kunemthetho, sisebenzisa lowo mthetho ukuhambisa indaba yale corona. Niyakhumbula ukuthi umongameli wakhuluma wathi sesiyathanda ukuthi sizama ukuthi sibambe ngenye indlela manje le corona, ngoba noko izibalo zayo azisezimbi, kodwa sibambe ngendlela ekhombisayo ukuthi siyazi ukuthi ayikapheli futhi iyashintsha shintsha. Wasesho futhi ukuthi asifuni ukuthi sihlale njalo sisebenzisa lo mthetho, kufanele ukuthi sihambe sushintsha. Le center ke ekuyiyona ebhekene nalezehlakalo ezinjengale corona, i-Disaster Management Center, nayo iye yahlangana yasho ukuthi ngokuhlaziya kwayo okwamanje asisekho la singathi lesahlakalo si-inhlekelele njengoba kade sisho njalo sithi siyinhlekelele. Ngakho-ke sebethi mhlawumbe i-cabinet singabheka ngenye indlela. I-cabinet ke yahlangana izolo, yase inquma ukuthi asithathe inyathelo eziya ngakhona ekuqedeni ukuthi sithi lesimo esikusona siyinhlekelele, kodwa sikwenze lokho ngendlela futhi engeze ukwenza ukuthi bese sigcina sesiphindela sesingena enhlekeleleni, futhi khona izinto okufanele ukuthi sizinqamule kahle ngobunono. Umthetho-ke uyasho ukuthi uma kudlula inhlekelele kuba khona izinto ezisuke zisafuna ukulungiswa, noma inhlekelele seyidlulile yona, ezonakele noma ezilungisa lokho okoniwe yileyo nhlekelele. Kwase kuvunyelwana ukuthi sizozisho lezo zinto ezizoqhubeka noma sesiphumile kule simo senhlekelele. Izinto ezinjengokuthi siqhubeke sizifake ifonyo masiseyixukwini ngaphakathi. Masingaphandle sihambela nje hayi njengoba nazi akusadingekile. Kodwa masiseyixukwini ngaphakathi kuyafanele ukuthi siqhubeke nazo ifonyo. Nokuthi uma sihleli singabe sesipintshana omunye phezu komunye, kufanele ukuthi siqaqane, kodwa singabe saqaqana kakhulu, siqaqane nje ngecante elilodwa. Iy'ngane ezineminyaka ewu-6 kwehla azidingekile zona ukuthi zifake ama-mask, iy'fonyo lezi. Bese kuthi futhi uma sisemihlanganweni emikhulu, masingaphakathi, inkulungwane yabantu ilungile. Uma singaphandle iy'nkulungwane ezimbili. Kodwa uma sifuna umhlangano omkhulu odlula inkulungwane ngaphakathi, siyavumeleka ukuthi sidlule enkulungwaneni, kodwa singadluli kwingxenye uhafu wendawo leyo. Mangabe leyo ndawo ngiyalinganisa nje, mhlawumbe ikwazi ukuthatha abantu abayinkulungwane eziyishumi, singadluli-ke enkulungwaneni ey'nhlanu. Kodwa uma sodlula enkulungwaneni eyodwa, kuzofanele ukuthi abantu abangenayo bakhombise ukuthi bawuthathile umjovo we-corona, noma bakhombise ukuthi bathestile abanayo i-corona amahora ayisikhombisa nambili, 72 hours, ukuthi bakhombise ukuthi bathestile abanayo i-COVID. Kodwa manizoba inkulungwane nje kuphela kudingekile lokho. Bese-ke kukhulunywa nangendaba la kungena khona abantu abangenayo, abaphuma ngaphandle nabangenayo. Ukuthi mabengena kuzofanele ukuthi bakhombise isitifiketi sokuthi bajovile. Uma bengenaso isitifiketi bayangena nje, akukho okunye okudingekayo. Kodwa uma bengenaso isitifiketi sokujova, kufanele bakhombise ukuthi bathestile abanayo i-COVID. Lokho-ke kusho emngceleni le esemhlabeni nemingcele le esema-airport, leyo yento ey'hamba ngomoya, iy'ndiza. Kufuneka lokho nje. Ophumayo-ke vele kufanele alalele imithetho yala eyakhona ukuthi kuthiwani lapho eyakhona. Okunye okufanele ngoba kwamanje beyikhokhwa ngalo mthetho wenhlekelele.
Question goes as follows. Can you please clarify whether the president will be making an announcement on or around April 4, or whether the state of disaster will be lifted then? The second question from also Tamara Khan of Business Day. Why did Cabinet call an extraordinary meeting last night? And what is the rationale for ending the state of disaster sooner than previously indicated? Are you under legal pressure to do so? And the last one is, when will the proposed regulations be gazetted? Those are the questions that we have thus far, Minister.
Thank you. If you recall, the Gazette said the national state of disaster is extended to the 15th of April or anytime, because you can extend it for a month or less. So I also have explained that the Disaster Management Center had a scheduled meeting because they had sent questionnaires to the stakeholders and to departments to check where they are, whether they can now manage without the national state of disaster. And they had their meeting and they decided that, yes, many departments now are able to manage without the national state of disaster. And therefore, it can be lifted. But of course, the same law allows for a post-disaster response and rehabilitation. And therefore, what we are going to gazette is part of that post-disaster response and rehabilitation. So the president himself had said that he won't keep the country under the state of disaster for any time longer than it's necessary. So the regulations are going to be gazetted tonight, and we will wait for 48 hours for comments, and then we'll analyze them, and then the president will announce what should happen as soon as that is done. Thank you. I think you're muted.
Thank you very much, Minister. Minister, we have a question from Fundo of Mbashe FM, and what wants to know is, I would like to find out from the minister, are they going to take new applications for the 350 rand grants, or they will just continue with those already on the database, those that have already applied? I think that is the question, Minister, from Fundo. And we have another question from Sumen Naidu, a freelance journalist. And the question goes as follows. As we reflect on the pandemic, does government believe it was absolutely necessary to keep the state of disaster for so long? And the second question is, can the minister clarify if the state of disaster is lifted, can private business still enforce their own mask or vaccine mandates? Those are the questions, Minister. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for those questions. In terms of the 350, I think it will still be managed in the next month as it has been. I think they are taking applications, but after a month, they will say how it will work. But for now, I think it will continue as it is, with people still applying. If you look at how we have done through the 2 years, and look at how other countries also have done, and compare what happened here now and what happened during the Spanish flu, I think, yes, it was necessary, because I think we would have experienced many more deaths if we hadn't, and probably because if many people die, even the jobs may be affected still. So I think it was necessary. Whether the businesses will enforce their mandates, as far as the regulations go, we say if you have 1,000 people indoors, you don't need, at 1 meter apart, you don't need to show the vaccine certificate. It's only if it's a bigger gathering that you need a vaccine certificate. That's what is in our regulations. And they will continue, as I said, SASSA will continue taking new applications.
Thank you very much, Minister, and thank you for the clarity that you have given. This then brings us to the end of this media briefing. And
maybe I should just say in Zulu, particularly the SASSA questions and so on, which may be very necessary. Into ka 350 izoqhubeka, bazoqhubeka bathathe nezicelo ezintsha njengoba benza azizuvaleka. So bazoqhubeka kanjalo. Ngicabanga ukuthi nje ngicacise lapho ngoba ngicabanga ukuthi kubalekile kakhulu lo. Ngiyabonga.
Siyabonga, Minister, and thank you very much, Minister, and thank you also for the clarity on the issue here, SASSA. The Gazette will be available tonight, and there are 48 hours for comments. This brings us to the end of this briefing, and thank you very much, Minister. The briefing is adjourned.
Thank you very much, Mr. Baloyi, and all those who attended the briefing. Thank you.